Hello everybody, welcome back to the next in the Trumpeter 1/200 scale Bismarck build series. Last time, after building the mast, I was going to move on and finish off the midsection, but then I realised that I hadn't done anything about building the two cranes on the ship. There's one port and starboard. They were aircraft and boat handling cranes. So I thought it was time really to catch up with those two items before I moved on to doing any more work on the midsection. So that involves quite a few bits from the Trumpeter kit, but as usual we've also got quite a bit of Pontos photo etch and turn brass to put onto those cranes. So we'll get over to the bench and let's make a start on them. Okay, so this is the Pontos instructions here. For these two cranes, we've got one or two pieces of the Trumpeter kit to get out, but there's lots of photo etch, mainly the pulleys and cables, and this platform that goes on the back, and one or two pieces of turn brass as well from the Pontos set. So I'll start off, we'll get the Trumpeter kit parts out and get them ready for the photo etch. Got a Trumpeter part broken there, so I'll have to deal with that. And it's the same with this second sprue. So I'll just spend some time cleaning up these Trumpeter parts. Then I'll assemble the crane base, and after that we'll be ready to get some of the photo etch sorted out. Okay, that's the bases from the Trumpeter kit, which are reasonably detailed, they're okay. these jibs are quite prominent on the ship, so it's worth spending a bit of time just cleaning the seam lines up from them. Okay, so that's as much as I can do with the plastic for the minute. The next thing to do is to build the cables and the pulleys. Let's get the photo etch out and see how that goes together. These are the photo etch pulleys and cables for the crane, which I'm going to replace because I don't like photo etch to represent cables. I don't think they run properly. They tend to kink, and I'd rather use elastic thread. So I'm going to have to cut those off and assemble the pulleys separately onto the axles, which are these turned brass parts. So we'll get the pulleys assembled in the order that we need to. First of all, I'm going to build the rear set of pulleys, and they will go on this part of the crane here. And these have to be put together in the right order because this axle has different diameters to it to accommodate the different size holes in the pulleys. And that's so that you can get them equally spaced out. That's why Pontos do it like that. So we need to match up the centre parts of the pulleys here with the outside, and then we can fit them onto the axle. So we'll start with the larger of the sets of pulleys. With the spacer in there. So there you can see the purpose of the stepped axle in spacing those pulleys at the correct distance apart. Now these pulley sets go into the frame here at the back of the crane. So we need to drill a 0.5mm hole in the end of the frame here. I'm just opening those up to 0.6mm. Pontos tell us 0.5, but it's just a bit tight on the axle. So now I've got to fit the forward set of pulleys. The Pontos tell us to remove this centre section here, which I'll do with a cutting disc, but before that I just want to drill the end of the jib out to accept the forward axle. Okay, so we'll put the axles onto the end of the jib here, and again we've got to do this in the correct order. So this front axle here has the central pulleys sandwiched in between the arms of the crane, and we've got another 2 pulleys on the outside. The centre also contains the hook. I'm sure there's a more technical term for that, but basically that's what it is. With this axle to hold everything together, I'm just using some pliers and just crushing the end. That just stops everything falling apart. That's how the finished piece should look. I'm going to leave this hanging loose just so that it falls naturally, vertically. So you'll notice that I've taken out this rear set of pulleys, and that's because I've just realised that you have to fit these rods before the pulley goes into position. These are the rods that presumably lifted the jib to some extent, or brought the whole crane into an operating position. So we have one either side, and that now can fit back in. Like that. And then the rods can be adjusted to the height that you want. Now I'm going to fix the jib. So if we'd have had the photo etch on these, the position of the jib would have been fixed, obviously. But we can now, because we're going to rig this separately, we can put this crane in any position that we want to. Now I've got one of these over on the ship. It's just setting at the moment, and I've positioned the jib so that it rests up against the crutches on the rear side of the bridge. I fitted those earlier on. So obviously once I remove that, I know that I can put it back and it'll be in the correct place on the crutches. But this one that goes on the port side, I'm going to have in a different position just for a bit of variety. That's the side where I've got the Arado ready for launch. So I'll position this as though we're getting ready to recover the aircraft. The next thing to do is to fit the control platform, which goes here on the front. Now, in retrospect, I should have really fitted these before I put the jib on, because that slightly obstructs the correct positioning of this part. These are the pivots for the control wheels. It's got some railings to go around the front. And finally, for the photo etch, this ladder just accesses the control platform. Okay, it's time to do the rig on these cranes now. I've already done this one, as you can see, and there are actually two sets of cables on these cranes. One lifted the jib up and down, and the other one obviously controlled the hook here at the front. So I've just created that from one length of rigging elastic, which is this stuff, and it's a gauge really to match the photo etch on the hook here and the pulley. And just looking at some of the photographs I've got on the ship, this is probably a decent approximation for the gauge of the cables. It looks right anyway on the ship. So I'll do the other crane now. The run is from the Anatomy of the Ship book. As best as I can make it out, it's not easy to work out how these cables went from one pulley to another. And the first thing we need to do is get a fixed end, which is over on this side. So I'm just threading that through, and I'll secure it with a drop of CA just on the inside of the frame here. Obviously you've got to have a really good fixing for this, otherwise it will pull away. So this first line goes to the outside on the left. And the important thing here is not to put too much tension on this line, because if you do, it's going to twist the plastic jib. And I know that because I've already rigged the other one twice and put too much tension in it. So just enough to hold it straight, but it's exerting no pressure on the plastic at all. You don't want lots of CA on this. Just a tiny drop is enough to hold the line. This goes back underneath the pulleys here. And then we come forward again. So you can see how little CA is required to fix this elastic. Now, if you're building this model yourself and rigging these cranes, you better check your references, because I can't guarantee that this run is absolutely correct. It's the best I can make out from the Anatomy of the Ship plans, but I'm not guaranteeing that it's absolutely right. You just have to be careful to get the correct run sometimes, because the cables can cross over each other if you don't get the line right. These cables are actually just falling into the groove that's created by the 3 photo etch parts. So just like the real thing, really. Now I've cut this line too short, so I'm going to have to join it at some point. I was about 4 or 5 inches short on that line there. So I've just got to add this little bit underneath. Nearly there. Okay, that's all good. I'm going to have to do a little bit of painting on this. And we've got a cage, a guard cage, to fit over the back here. And then these will be done, and we'll get over to the ship and fit them. These are the cages which have to be rolled up. Eventually these cages will hopefully slot over the cables. But first, obviously they're going to need painting, so I'll get those done, and then I'll see if we can get them fitted. That's quite a fiddly piece to get in, but actually I think it's worth trying to do it. They're really nice. I like the effect that they give. Okay, so we'll just get the paintbrush out, just do 1 or 2 touch-ups, and then we'll get over to the ship and get these fitted. The last parts that we need are these. These are the 2 pieces that, if you remember at the beginning of the video, the legs were broken on them. But I managed to fix them, and I'll paint those and we'll get those fitted next, and that'll finish these cranes off. Okay, just a last check round, and I think they're good to go. So we'll get over to the ship and let's get these on. Okay, we'll get the cranes fitted. It's an easy enough job. So the key thing here is to get the top of the crane here into the cradle on the back of the bridge. They look nice. They add a lot to the model, I think, those cranes. Okay, so that's all done. I'm really pleased with how those cranes have turned out. The addition of the Pontos photo etch makes a really big difference to them. But also, I think using elastic thread for the cables also is a big improvement. The Pontos photo etch, if you assemble it as per the instructions, it can't achieve the crossover of the cables that was actually present. So next time I will move on, as I thought I would last week, to finishing off the midships. But before then, I want to catch up on some aircraft projects that I've been working on behind the scenes over the last couple of weeks. But I'm also going to be starting the next 132 scale project, which is Qatari's 132 scale Spitfire 1. That'll be starting later on this week. Now, for that reason, I won't be posting a Bismarck update next Friday, as usual. I'll bring you an update on the Qatari Spitfire in that slot next week. So I hope you've enjoyed this one, and the RAF hasn't made too much of a distraction. They're out again this afternoon, as you can hear. But I'll get some photographs for the end of the video, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye for now.